Hey y'all, welcome to the Filling Station. It's been an interesting day in the market. So in this video, I kind of want to go over some charting tips. I know sometimes when people look at my charts, they are very congested. And, I wanted to explain the why. First, let me give my disclaimer, y'all. I am not a financial advisor. I just enjoy teaching people how to build generational wealth. And yes, the stock market is just one of those avenues. So this video is for educational purposes only. But if you could please like, share, subscribe, y'all. We learn and we grow together. With that being said, let's get started. So we're going to go to different charts, but as of right now, we are looking at AMD, and y'all know I like to start at the 30-minute chart. Why? I say it often, y'all. It tells a story. I like to read, right? So looks as if we got rejected here at this ATR trailing stop. Kind of knew we could possibly have trouble in that area, and look, everything just declined from there. Looks like we found some support here at this 200 EMA again on this 30-minute chart. Well, guess what? Price broke out of that back to the downside, but y'all see we came down close to an area that we knew, that 208.36 area, we could possibly have support there, right? We tried to bounce back up to the upside. Look right here, only to have trouble at that 215.16 area where we kind of knew we could possibly have trouble, right? So that is the 30-minute chart. Going to that 5-minute chart, right? We kind of see the exact same thing, but wanted to point out why I mark my gathering spots or those zones, or why do I have so many different lines on my chart. So I'm going to go to the SPY, and let me go ahead and give a disclaimer. It is going to be very congested. Why? Because SPY just came off of a 673, 674 high. So that is my disclaimer. I'm going to the SPY now, right? So looking at the SPY, we have all of these gray lines here, right? So how do I find anything, or how do I know anything? So I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit more. As of now, we know, we made this high of 673.95, and we have a low down here of 646, right? So let me see if I can make this a little bit more visible, because there's something I want to point out here and here. Okay, so I'm going to go and try to make this. There we are. So looking at it from that view, it was overwhelming, but now those gray lines are not as bad as before, right? So what was interesting is we got rejected here only to have this little decline here, right? So I wanted to point out how we can make it a little bit more fine-tuned and not be as bad. So the area that I really wanted to focus on is here. Why? Because coming off of a 673 high. Do y'all see? I had these lines marked a while, right? So that 659.11 area, do you see how price just came down and stayed as a support right here for a while before continuing to decline? Do you see how price came right here at this 660.27 area? I knew we could possibly have, that could be a possible area of support, right? So again, here's another example of that 662.03. I kind of knew we could possibly have trouble in this area here, and that's exactly what we did. Again, I looked at the support and resistance on a smaller scale because I'm an overthinker, and I kind of want to know where my possible trouble places could be. So we found support here only to lose support. It looks like it tried to come back up and get rejected on this 30-minute chart, on this 5 EMA, and we continue to decline. But if you can see, look, there's another area that I kind of knew we could possibly have trouble, right? So I'm going to go back down. I'm going to make it a bigger just so that we can see it. There we are again. We are kind of in an area right there. We kind of knew we could possibly have trouble in that area. So that's why my charts are very congested. And a lot of times I just do not delete those areas, because strong possibility that we're going to come back to that again. So I try to gray it out so it's not too overpowering. Sometimes I'll go and change the color, so from that blue to a gray, so that I can block that out. But it's simple support and resistance, y'all. Finding the gathering spot. Where is price gathered? Marking the high of that and the low of that. Why? Because price is probably going to come back to that area again. And as you can see, the SPY came down here to this 646.49 area. Let's see the low of this candle, 646.50. That is kind of almost at the exact area that I knew we could possibly have trouble. And as you can see, we're back at this same exact place again. I knew we could possibly have trouble in that area. So if you're looking at my charts and you're wondering why do she have so many different lines on her charts like that, it's because I try to gray those out and know that I could possibly have trouble in those areas. Now, looking at it from this time frame, we can say there's no way you can figure anything else out. Well, actually I can, because I'm so used to seeing it, right? This is my gathering spot here. We went up, got rejected, only to come back down to an area of support. And I just showed you how, I can make those lines a little bit more visible, a little bit more clearer, a little more clearer. But again, it kind of helps me out as to when I'm in the trade, where are my trouble places, where can I possibly have trouble? And there, it shows me here, I can do the exact same thing on a different time frame. So because the SPY in Tesla is something that I trade often, I kind of want to know where my trouble places are. Should I trade those? And it helps me. And with trading, you have to figure out what works best for you. I cannot say that enough, right? So we are looking at Tesla. And I noticed that on the daily chart, Tesla gathered in this area, this 428.60 area. I found the consolidation area, or I like to say the gathering spot, and I marked it from the daily chart. And as you can see, it has remained a strong area of support, which is that 428.60. Again, this is the 5-minute chart. I'm going to go to the 30-minute chart because, again, I like to read that story, right? So, okay, this is our 30-minute chart for Tesla today. The high was that 443. We came off of that only to, when we broke through this 428.60, I kind of knew we were probably going to have a situation. Why? Because it has remained to be that strong area of support, in my opinion. We are definitely under that 440.41 area. I remember that because Tesla held support there. You see, we got rejected there. Let's see if we can go back and see that. We got rejected in that area, only to, once we did that, there was, okay, we're possibly going to have some trouble. That 5 and 50 crossed for Tesla. That is a signal for me that I like to look at. When we broke under this 428.60, I kind of knew at the end, we're possibly going to have some trouble, but I wanted to point out these areas. Do you see this area here of the 433.50 area? Kind of knew we could possibly have trouble in that area. Why? Because it's been a support area for us before, right? So I'm going to come back down. I'm going to kind of like do the same thing as I did with the SPY. As you can see, we broke a little bit under this area right here, but nonetheless, we are very, very close to a support area that I have marked here. As with this one, it did the exact same thing. I knew that we could possibly have trouble in this area. And as you can see here, price gathered here a few times, and we kind of knew that we could possibly have trouble in that area. So this is why I have so many different areas of support and resistance on my charts, because I don't want to remove them, because at some point it's going to let me know when we get back in that area again, and there's a strong possibility we'll be back in that area again, knowing where your support and your resistance is. And y'all, it's what works best for you with your trading. I can't say that enough. If these lines bother you, I would say do key levels of support. Some people do 425, 450, 475, whatever works best for you, that's going to help you see the picture, because we all see things in a different way, right? So continuing with Tesla to the downside, we kind of knew we could possibly have trouble here. That 412 right there, I knew we could possibly, let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. That was a little too big. Let's see if we can go back and fix that again, right? So that 412 area, let me see, there we are. I knew we could possibly have trouble in this area. Well, guess what? Price declined after hours, y'all. You see where the body of that candle is right there at a level, that 407.89. I kind of knew we could possibly have trouble in that area. And again, we broke through that 406.57 area, only to come down. Let's see the low of this candle, 406.22. But y'all see, we're still in that area. We are very close here on this area. So y'all, this is why I mark my support and my resistance, because we're probably going to come back to that area here, 404.80. I kind of knew we could possibly come back to that area. Well, guess what? This candle decided to come under that 402.54 area that I have marked down to the $400.56. I'm going to mark that area. Why? Because something stopped us right there with Tesla. And if you notice, there was a kind of like a gap from this line to this line. There is a gap. So this kind of fills in an area that I would need to chart anyway. So I like to do that, right? So I'm going to leave that for now. So I kind of knew that my next level of support for Tesla is at this 399.17 area. So it looks like we bounced off of here, went back to that 412 area that we have marked. We kind of knew we had trouble here. We could have trouble here, right? So looks like we're getting rejected. It came back down again. So this will be our support area. Lose that. This will be our support area. So one of the things I wanted to point out with Tesla, I'm going to see if I can make that a little bit bigger. I have a gap that needs to be filled from 915, if I'm not mistaken. From 915, it was at the 396.66 area down to the 392.73. There is a gap for Tesla from the daily chart that will need to be filled. And I can pull up the daily chart, but it's going to be very, very congested. And yes, so it looks as if Tesla may come back down to fill this gap. It would not surprise me if we did, right? Tesla does what Tesla does. But I wanted to point that out, that again, I just marked that level. If we should lose this area, come back and retest this $400 again, we could very well come back to the 399.17, and then breaking that, I have the 397.16, which gets us really close to that gap fill area around the 396.66, down to this area 394.18 and 392.73. What's interesting is there's a few areas that I need to fill in as far as charting. Why? Because something is going to stop us in these areas, and I'm going to go mark that as I did with this one here. Something's going to stop us in that area. I need to remember those areas. I'm going to probably go in and mark it just like so, and it's going to help me with my charting. So I'm going to go ahead and give another disclaimer. I'm going to go to Tesla's daily chart because it is going to be very, very congested. I need to say that. Why? Because I've been charting Tesla for a few years now, right? So this is the 2-minute chart. This is Tesla's daily chart. Now that, like, looking at it, it's like there's no way you can understand what that means, but guess what? There's ways to fix it, right? So this is Tesla's daily chart. I'm going to make this. So this is the gap that I showed that needed to be filled here. So this is 912. This is 915. So yes, that was correct. So Tesla has a gap on the daily chart that need to be filled here, starting with the 402.54 down to the 396.66 area. So there's a gap here. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. There we are. So this is the line that I just marked at the $400.68 here, but Tesla still has a gap from here down to here that need to be filled. Not saying that that's going to happen, next week or whenever. It just tells me that normally when I mark my charts, I mark the white dotted lines here as gap fill, and I'll go in and put like gap. So yeah, I just wanted to show you, y'all. I mean, again, looking at my charts, people will wonder, why in the world does she have so many different lines on her charts, and how does she understand anything with that many lines on the chart? I can adjust this to where I can see it. When the market is open, I see it the way that I need to see it. There's my support. It bounced off of there, got rejected on this line here, came back down to this area here. So I can see it. There's so many different ways to make it visible to where I can see it and put my picture together. So again, trading is what works best for you, trying to understand it and trying to make sure that you're able to identify where your possible trouble places are. So I hope this has been helpful in at least trying to understand how I chart, or why my charts have so many different lines on it. And I wanted to point out that the prices are right at the places like here, like we knew we could have trouble, right? simple support and resistance. What I normally do is mark my gathering spot, the high and the low, and I'm put my lines there, support and resistance. Why? Because strong possibility, y'all. We're coming back to that place again. So again, I hope this has been very helpful in at least trying to explain to you why I have so many different lines on my chart, and hoping that you can learn for how to come up with your strategy and what works best for you. So y'all, I hope that everyone had an awesome day today. It has been a very interesting day in the market, let's say that. So again, I would like to say, if you could please like, share, subscribe, y'all. We learn and we grow together. With that being said, be blessed as well as a blessing unto others. Until next time.